Hello, fellow alchemists. Welcome back to our series on deploying Phoenix with Elixir. Now, we left off basically deploying our app in a way that we can use on Kubernetes. Now, the next thing I think that's super important is to actually make sure that our app is ready to be used and also that it's still up and going. And so within Kubernetes, we have this idea of a health check. And so today I want to go over how to build a health check. Now, building a health check is quite simple, and I'm going to show you how to do it, doing our typical test development approach. So what I usually do is I go to the controller and I add a test. Now, what I'm testing for is that a GET request to /health check. Let's do it this way so it's quite easy to read. Returns 200. Pattern match to get my con. And we do a health request to health check. And we're going to assert that we have an HTML response of 200, but we don't need to have a response body, so we can just check to make sure that it's empty. Now running mixed test. Cool. So we're missing that route. Now how we do that is quite simple. We go to our router and we just add in the route of get health check. Page controller. It's called the method health check. And we actually need to create this function. So if we go to our controller, we create the health check function. Get the com, don't care about the params. And then we just pipe the con through, we're going to use put response content type, so that way we don't need to actually render an empty template. We could just render it within here. Tell it that it's HTML. And then return a text response of just an empty response. Check it again. There we go, works fine. But something interesting to take a look at is if we run our server and we go to our page, now we have our logs and everything coming up okay, which is fine. But now the issue comes in that if we go to /health check, this comes up just fine, but we actually have some logs being sent out, you see? And so the problem with this is that when we have, say, a health check that runs every second or every 10 seconds, we're just going to have a ton of logs coming out, and we don't need all that. So what we can do is we can actually remove the logs. I'm going to show you how to do that. Remove the logs from the logging for that, only for that specific route, by the way. So what I do is this, is that I have a separate scope. We can basically just copy all of this. And we cut this route. And because we're always going to be going through the browser for normal stuff, and we don't need all this, checking if it's HTML, fetching a session, etc. We don't need all that. So now what we can do is we can just take the endpoint, and within here we're going to have the plug logger, so we can just cut this and we can stick that right here, so that way it only logs for anything within that goes through the browser. So it should be pretty safe. Now, if we run our Mix Phoenix server, and we go to our main endpoints, we can see that logs are working fine. But now, if I try to go to healthcheck again, there is no logs other than the debug. Okay, other than the debug, there's absolutely no logs, and I'll show you that again. Refresh over here, just the debug, and that's okay because when you're running in production, you're not going to be, looking at the debug logs. You usually have info, so you don't have all this kind of messy output. So this should be really good enough for us to work with. Okay, so again, this is Alan from Plangora. Please subscribe if you haven't, and we're going to have a lot more tutorials coming up soon. So I'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.